Well, good morning, conference. Glad to see such a magnificent turnout on this fine Monday morning. Our next speaker is a tireless campaigner for Scottish independence. In government, she gives a clear focus for inward investment to grow Scotland's economy. She champions the Gaelic language and made history by becoming the first female MSP to give a plenary speech entirely in Gaelic in the Scottish Parliament. And she's been a fearless champion for her constituents, ensuring that the voice of the Highlands are at the very heart of our SNP government. And while she has announced that she will stand down from elected office next year, I know that she will be a formidable asset to the SNP and will remain a formidable asset to the cause of independence on our journey. Friends, will you please welcome to the podium Scotland's Deputy First Minister, Kate Forbes, MSP.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Angela, and Mathin Va, what a turnout on a Monday morning. It is the last day of conference, and what a conference it has been. Here we are in Aberdeen, the great granite city, the energy capital of Europe, the jewel in the crown of our economy. Because the North East has powered our economy for decades. It's developed and exported cutting-edge technology, and it is home to Scotland's brightest and best workers. And billions of pounds of tax revenues generated here have bankrolled the UK Treasury for years. Those tax revenues frittered away on unjust wars and pet projects rather than being invested in future generations. We don't need to ask, what if it had been different? Because a stone's throw away across the North Sea, Norway's oil fund is estimated at just over $2 trillion. Let that sink in. In Norway, child poverty is low. Welfare support is fair. They can weather economic instability. Meanwhile, what's happened here in the energy capital of Europe over the last year under a Labour government? Higher fuel bills for you and for me, cuts to welfare support for disabled people, and months of worry for pensioners in fuel poverty. What a contrast to other small independent nations. Conference, we can't unpick the past, as much as we would like to. But we can write a better future, one that will never tolerate fuel poverty in an energy-rich nation like ours. And we can only do that with independence. Conference, in the last year, Labour have followed the decades-old pattern of exploiting Scotland's energy revenues by extending and increasing the Tories' energy profits levy, making hundreds of workers redundant and creating an unjust transition. In a classic move by this Labour government, they accept the 78% tax rate is costing jobs, but they won't do anything about it for another 5 years. So we call on the Chancellor today, don't wait. Replace the destructive fiscal regime at the next budget with a fair one that protects workers and enables the energy transition. And I know that there are some people right now who are apprehensive about the future. And so I want to speak directly to you. We have your back. We get it, because the SNP will always stand side by side with our workers. Conference, we are a very lucky nation, a twice blessed nation, with the discovery of oil and gas 40 years ago and the enormous potential of renewable energy today. And it's not a binary choice between our past and our future, it's a transition, and it must be a just one. The past saw our energy industry bankroll the UK Treasury, but the SNP will champion fairer investment directly in communities with the growth of renewable energy. The past saw thousands of workers in good, well-paid jobs, but the SNP's focus will see thousands more in our supply chain, reindustrialising, restoring our manufacturing base. Because while other parties look backwards, we look forwards. Conference, that is leadership. We are leading the world in the innovation, technology and commercialisation of renewable energy. That's why it's so bewildering that the UK government would rather focus on the distraction of new nuclear rather than on Scotland's renewables potential. It will take longer, it'll be more expensive, it'll increase bills, and it will leave our communities to deal with dangerous nuclear waste. So, Conference, let us be clear with the Labour government today. Scotland will not be the UK's nuclear playground. Just last week, we saw for the first time global renewable energy generation surpassing coal as the world's biggest source of electricity. And I'm clear that in Scotland, our natural resources, our wind and water, must deliver benefits for every Scottish citizen. It must create good, well-paid jobs for you, so you don't have to worry about feeding your family or heating your home. It must leave a legacy of better infrastructure, so our ports, harbours and roads are upgraded and expanded. And it must deliver national economic prosperity that lifts up every community and eradicates child poverty for good. Many of the opportunities are in the supply chain, in the small and medium-sized Scottish businesses and the ports and the harbours that are at the heart of our communities. That's why we're investing £500 million in the supply chain, leveraging 3 times that much from the private sector. And let me tell you some stories about where that's happening well. In Kishorn, on the Highland West Coast, our investment in the port is bringing families back to a community that felt forgotten. Many of you will recall Kishorn was a thriving industrial site in the 60s and 70s, creating work for hundreds of locals who might otherwise have left. But it grew quiet when work dried up in the 80s. No lights on in hundreds of homes. Fewer children in the local primary schools. Businesses struggling to stay afloat, persistent depopulation, Conference, an unjust transition. But under the SNP, that is all changing, because as we speak this morning, it is a hive of activity as contractors on site reclaim land and build a new key for the pipeline of work in renewables. Hundreds of new jobs, and Conference, that is leadership. And on the East Coast, our investment in Ardasir with partners is developing one of Europe's largest energy facilities for offshore wind. Not just the biggest in Scotland, although that would be impressive, but one of the biggest in Europe. Conference, that is also leadership. And from west to east and now further south in Ayrshire, in an area of lower wages and falling population, XLCC is building the UK's largest subsea cable factory at the former Hunterston site in Ayrshire. But the real benefit here is the investment in training the next generation. The point is, conference, under the SNP, more apprenticeships, better wages, new jobs, hope of a just transition. And conference, that is the leadership you can expect from the SNP. Conference, in 2014, do you remember that we were told that Scotland couldn't afford to be independent? Well, conference, I tell you today that we can't afford not to be independent. And this time, our economic prosperity will not be squandered by a distant UK government. This time, our success will be shared, our wealth will leave nobody behind, and our future will be better than our past. Conference, if only we could see ourselves as the rest of the world sees Scotland, we would have all the self-belief and the self-confidence that we need to choose independence. In the run-up to the next election, every party will set out their strategy on our economy. Times are tough. Your bills keep rising, but average real wages in the UK have flatlined, with almost no change since the financial crisis almost 20 years ago. When it comes to inequality, growth and productivity in the UK, these are not temporary problems, they're terminal. Almost 2 decades of Westminster austerity has undermined living standards. It's hampered productivity and it has stifled innovation. The current UK system displays a persistent level of geographic inequality with an unhealthy and unstable reliance on London. So what's Labour's solution to these terminal problems? Well, Labour's ambition for Scotland is to be more like England, for our national parliament at Holyrood to mirror Westminster, for Edinburgh to emulate London, and Glasgow to replicate Manchester. They claim that is what would deliver economic success. Well, conference, let's just clarify that point. The latest ONS statistics say that GDP per head in Edinburgh is higher than in London, and GDP in Greater Glasgow is higher than in Greater Manchester. So I hate to break it to Labour, but trying to be more like England would actually make Scotland poorer. And when it comes to workers, we also know what Labour will do. The closure of the Grangemouth refinery was a dark day in Scotland's industrial heritage. Only months before then, Anna Sarwar stood in front of a television camera next to our leader and told the nation that his Westminster colleagues would, and I quote, step in and save the jobs. But as soon as Labour got into government, they did neither. Now, maybe Sarwar got mixed up, because Labour did indeed step in and save the jobs, but not at Grangemouth, at Scunthorpe. One site saved and one site abandoned by Labour. In contrast, workers can always depend on the SNP to do everything within our power to save jobs. Back in June, proud Scottish bus manufacturer Alexander Dennis announced a plan which would have discontinued production at Falkirk and suspended production at Larbert. 400 roles were at risk of redundancy. And Scotland faced the prospect of losing our bus manufacturing capacity for good. A century of automotive excellence in central Scotland would have ended. The SNP government would not let that happen. And whilst the Labour Party chased headlines, carped from the sidelines and claimed that Metro mayors would save the day, the SNP got to work. With the support of trade unions and the company, we reached agreement on the principles of a furlough scheme. That was the first time ever that the Scottish Government supported a furlough scheme. It was an innovative, exceptional intervention to act as a bridge to sustainably support hundreds of Scottish jobs. Conference, that is leadership. In a few short months, the people of Scotland will go to the polls to choose their next government. And at that election, we have a choice: to rely on Labour's empty promises that let down the workers of Grangemouth and Alexander Dennis, or to vote for a party, the SNP, who will always stand up for our people, and a First Minister, John Swinney, who stands head and shoulders above the opposition. The choice is stark: empty slogans with Labour or a proud record of delivery with the SNP. Under the SNP, we are the fastest growing start-up nation in Europe, with a strong base of entrepreneurial activity. Tech investment grew by 120% between 2020 and 2024. We built the Scottish National Investment Bank to support and de-risk investment in housing, net zero and innovation. We pioneered the TechScaler programme, which I firmly believe will go down as one of the greatest economic interventions in the last decade. We introduced free bus travel for young people, reducing the cost of getting to work, college or university. We removed peak fares on our railways to support workers and get people spending money in our pubs, restaurants, shops and high streets. Our workers, teachers, nurses, police officers have the highest starting salary in the UK, and the Scottish Child Payment, a payment not available anywhere else in the UK, is directly lifting children out of poverty. Conference, that is leadership. So, Conference, I hope I'm giving you the impression that I'm really proud of what this party has delivered for the economy. We're laying the foundations of an independent Scotland. With the limited powers of devolution, the SNP has always tried to deal with the immediacy of our economic challenges, but also focusing on the long-term opportunities for future generations. The Unionists want to limit Scotland's ambitions with a parochial focus on a broken UK economy. Conference, our horizons are so much broader. We look beyond our borders to the small, agile, independent economies like Ireland, Denmark and Finland, countries which thrive while the UK languishes behind. Those nations show us what is possible for Scotland. They are a vision of Scotland's future, while Westminster is a shadow of the past. And Conference, we stand together to say to the people of Scotland, this is not as good as it gets. A better future is possible with the fresh start of independence, and that is exactly what the SNP will offer the people of Scotland. Conference, there is one immediate risk to our ambitions for the economy, and I'll be honest, it really worries me. During my time in government, I've spoken to hundreds, perhaps thousands of businesses, small and large. They're ambitious, they're investing, they're excited to grow. But in order to grow, they need workers, just as the Labour Party tries to out-reform reform and pull up the drawbridge on migration. There has been a political consensus in Scotland for many years about the value of people choosing to come and live, work or study in Scotland. That political consensus has been shattered by Reform, the Tories and Labour. And Conference, for the sake of our values, the sake of our economy, the SNP totally and utterly rejects the depressing, denigrating narrative against migration. we need people to come here, and we need them to contribute to our society, our communities, and our economy. And the SNP will always offer a warm welcome, because conference, that is leadership. Conference, I want to end with a thank you. It's been an enormous privilege to represent the people of Skye, Lochaber and Badenoch for almost a decade. It's a vast area, as you know, but so special. Canna, Rum, Muck and Egg, the Ardnamurchan Peninsula, Razzie and Skye, all the villages south and north of Loch Ness, Fort William under the shadow of Ben Nevis, Glencoe and Kinlochleven, Canusie, Aviemore, Dalwhinnie and Newtonmore nestled in the Cairngorms, the marked town of Dingwall and the fertile soil of the Black Isle. The landscapes are breathtaking and the people are resilient, and it has been my privilege, a privilege beyond measure, to serve these communities on behalf of the SNP. And I am deeply proud to have been part of the SNP government as Finance Secretary and Deputy First Minister, securing many of the economic building blocks to smooth our transition to an independent nation. But I'll let you into a secret as I close. My dream job was always to serve as Minister for Gaelic. The language of my forebears, stigmatised and beaten out of them, but passed on to me through Gaelic medium education. And one of my last acts in government has been establishing both Gaelic and Scots as official languages through the Scottish Languages Act. And I think that if anything symbolises our journey as a nation, it is the increasing self-confidence of Gaelic speakers. Young Scots learning and living in a language that used to bring scorn. This week, at the Mod in Fort William, thousands of people will showcase the best of Scotland's arts and culture, music, poetry, sport and art, and the numbers of participants are growing every year. Conference, we have always believed in the talents and the creativity of our people, and after 18 years in government, our young people are prouder than ever of their Scottish culture. We have always believed in the talents and creativity of our people, and that is on display this week in Fort William. We stand tall, proud of what we've achieved, and inspired by our future, proud of our languages, our customs, our culture. We don't believe that we're any better than other independent nations, but we do believe that we are just as good. Conference, do you know what I see here today? And do you know what I see in this nation we call home? I see self-confidence. I see self-belief. And I see hope. Thank you, Conference, for always inspiring me. Tap live.
Well, thank you very much for that little pocket size of 5'2" inspiration that goes a long, long way, and we wish you all every success and happiness in the future, Kate, but we are so relieved that you'll no be a stranger.
Not at all.
So, Conference, we have some resolutions to attend to this morning. and we are on Resolution 21. And can I invite my good friend and colleague, Kevin Stewart, MSP, to move the resolution entitled Scotland's Power. Kevin, come to the stage, please.
Thank you very much, Convener, and welcome to Europe's energy capital, the great city of Aberdeen. But I have to be honest, Conference, and say that this city, which has been a powerhouse when it comes to the economy, is worried. There is a great fear out there about Aberdeen's future and about jobs. Let me tell you, Conference, that in the UK, there are 154,000 energy jobs. That's 1 in every 215 jobs in these islands. But here, in this northeast corner of Scotland, 1 in every 6 people in work are working in the energy industry. And their fear is that the UK Labour government are seeming to do all that they can to destroy the prosperity that exists here. The Deputy First Minister just mentioned the Energy Profits Levy. That is hollowing out the oil and gas industry long before its time. And Ed Miliband, Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves need to listen to the industry and get rid of the unfair Energy Profits Levy, which is costing us jobs in the here and now. Hundreds of billions of pounds have flowed from this northeast corner of Scotland, from the North Sea to the Treasury in London. Money that has been squandered on nuclear weapons, on illegal wars, and policies which have not benefited our people here in the northeast or anyone in Scotland. And meanwhile, Norway sits in a $2 trillion sovereign wealth fund. They have invested in their future while Westminster has squandered Scotland's assets. And that has to change. And we have been made promises. We have been made promises here in Aberdeen that GB Energy would provide thousands of jobs in this city. That then became 2,000 jobs, dropped to 1,000, and thus far we have had a handful of jobs. That is not good enough, Conference. Aberdeen, the North East, Scotland deserves better. We were also promised that Labour would cut our household energy bills by £300. And instead, what we have is a situation that since they have come to power, energy bills have increased by £200. What is that about? They have failed dismally. And meanwhile, people here in this energy-rich city, as elsewhere in Scotland, are living in fuel poverty. That, Conference, is not good enough. And we can do much, much better. And we must do much, much better. We, Scotland, have the energy. All we need now is the power. Scotland's power to make our own decisions, to save jobs, to get rid of fuel poverty for good, and to create an environment that is good for all. Conference, I would urge you to back this city, back the North East of Scotland, back future jobs, and vote for this motion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. And can I invite Dr. Alistair Allen to the stage, please? Dr. Allen, another well-Kent Gaelic speaker, is going to second the motion, the resolution in front of us. Welcome, Alistair.
Conference, as the motion says, and as Kevin has very eloquently, as always, said, Scotland is on the cusp of a renewables revolution here in Aberdeen. And we have every reason, Conference, to be proud of that fact. And we have every reason to be proud too of the ongoing contribution of the oil and gas industry that shaped this city and which will provide many of the skills that Scotland will need for the transition to other forms of energy as the North Sea basin matures. The Scottish Government is committed to making that a truly just transition, and a truly just transition that will address many of the real fears that Kevin rightly pointed to. Now, Conference, as you know, many of the powers, most of the powers, in fact, over energy are reserved to Westminster until our people, until our party unlocks them for Scotland with independence. But until that happens, Conference, we need the UK to recognise that though Scotland is an energy-rich country, an energy powerhouse, people, particularly in the north of Scotland, have among the highest electricity costs and amongst the highest fuel poverty anywhere in Europe, and that the price of electricity acts as a brake on moving to new and cleaner ways to heat our houses and to generate electricity. Conference, we need the UK to take an interest in those facts. And if they won't, then, as Kevin very ably said, Scotland doesn't just need the energy, Scotland needs the power.
Thank you very much, Alistair. And can I invite Robert Leslie from Orkney to come to the stage? Robert is going to speak for the resolution, and Robert will be followed by George Bruce.
Conference, in 2015, I was a first-time speaker here on an Orkney resolution calling for the energy inequity that households relying on electric heating faced. My case was eloquently supported by another first-time speaker that day, Kate Forbes. Our careers have taken slightly different paths, but we both await a UK government that has the political will to resolve the glaring inequity where folk on electric heat pay 4 times more for a unit than those on gas. I've worked on the front line of energy support and advice for 15 years. The fuel poverty charity I helped set up 10 years ago became a lifeline during the pandemic and then the energy crisis. Electricity in energy-rich Orkney is heavily rationed, despite our islands having generated more clean green electricity than we consume every year since 2013. I've visited a house where a candle was being burned under an upturned ceramic flower pot propped up on wood to provide heat in the sitting room. The electric storage heating was switched off. Other houses burn imported gas bottles because the local electricity is too expensive. This is utter madness, a massive inequity, and must end. In 2017, I supported... In 2017, I supported 73 households with energy issues, sometimes up to 8 contacts until issues were resolved. So 131 contacts in total. By 2024, I supported 152 households with 418 contacts in total. One household needed 28 individual interventions with the supply company before they got the right meter. This is Britain's broken private energy system. It breaks people, makes them physically and mentally ill as they sit in cold, damp homes. I, myself, went through counselling last winter as the work of supporting folk with complex, time-consuming engagement with energy suppliers and not being able to get the fixes quickly enough impacted on my own mental health. One pensioner whose prepayment meter broke continued to top it up for fear of going into debt, as he struggled to get a supplier to replace the meter. Once I found him, it was still 7 months before we got the meter replaced and persuaded that supplier to send him a cheque for the £1,500 that he had overpaid them. We shouldn't have to fight to get folks' money back for them. But it doesn't need to be like this. In the Canadian province of Quebec, the Liberal government in 1962 drew up plans to take energy into public ownership. And in May 1963, having won an election on that platform, they bought the 11 private companies and merged them into Hydro-Quebec. Fuel poverty in that province is 7%. Imagine if Scotland could emulate Quebec. Meanwhile, UK Labour refuses to implement the recommendation of its own Climate Change Committee and cut electricity prices by 19% by removing levies from bills. High prices are blocking decarbonisation, we are told. But folk on electric heat in Orkney, Shetland, the Western Isles and across rural Scotland have long since decarbonised, but were punished instead of being rewarded. We urgently need these powers to create energy fairness. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you for your service in tackling fuel poverty. Now over to George. 3 minutes, Max.
Morning, conference. First, I must apologise for my voice. It appears that the good times at conference have been slightly too much for me. Conference, Scotland is a leader in generation, but as we've wonderfully heard from Robert, there is inequity in our system, which means what we produce is not affecting our people in the way it should, and that is an injustice we need to change. If you cast down your eyes along the East Coast Conference, you will see the leadership we have. We have the world's deepest fixed wind farm at 58 metres. We will soon have the world's biggest wind farm that has just been consented. And conference, we are a true leader in floating technology, which will turn the offshore area into a gold mine for our people, or at least it should. However, conference, it will not work for us until we have the ability to tailor the system for ourselves, because the failures of the electricity system in this country hit Scotland the hardest. How is it that the place with the best generation is the place where the costs are highest, where the opportunities to reduce costs are not taken, where energy poverty is at its very, very worst, conference? How is that fair? Conference, we will never convince the people of this country outside this room that renewable energy is our future when they look at the meter and they see their costs going up, they look outside the window and they see generation like this. We need to make that case, and we need to bring the power to Scotland. Conference, in the brief time I have before Angela turns me off, I just want to use one word for you, which I hope you have not heard before. That word is tenuos. Tenuos. That is the transmission network use of system. And if there's any example of how this system does not work, how it is broken, it is tenuos. What the system means is if you generate electricity in this part of the country or north, you are then charged huge amounts to transmit that energy down to the south. Why is that? Because they say the demand is down there, our generation is up here, so surely we must pay to take it down there. How is that a fair system? Conference. But before I am really cut off, because I'm starting to get looks, what tenuos does is it means an energy generator in Scotland is charged 20% more to take that electricity down south, and if you're in the south of England, that same system pays you 7% to put it into the grid. Now, Scotland, we have the generation, but we need the power. Support this resolution. Thank you.
Conference, there are no requests to speak against this resolution. Can I put it to you that we pass this by acclaim, please? And we move on to Resolution 22, and can I invite Tommy Shepherd to the stage to move the resolution. And this resolution is with respect to Scotland's industrial and energy future. Welcome, Tommy, and up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. Conference, I move this on behalf of the SNP Trade Union Group after consultation with the STUC and other policy experts in the field. By the middle of this century, two of the most important commodities in the world will be fresh, clean water and renewable energy. Scotland is blessed with an abundance in both. Already, we generate more electricity from renewable sources than we consume, more than 25% of our total energy mix, and that proportion will increase as decarbonisation takes place in transport and in heating. So that is the opportunity that we have, but that is only the beginning, because already plans are in place for a 10-fold expansion in offshore wind, which means that fields which had 100 turbines will have 1,000. Fields that produced 1 gigawatt of power will produce 10. This is a vast resource which would be the envy of any other country in the world. It has the potential for our prosperity. It has the potential to keep us warm, to power our infrastructure, and to generate wealth through exports. But that potential only comes if we seize the opportunity before us and choose the right path. At the moment, most of our renewable sources are controlled by a small number of large corporations. Now, I believe in a thriving sector, but the consequence of leaving it in the hands of the corporations is twofold. One, the profits that are made from this industry will be extracted and used for the benefit of other people, not for the people of Scotland. And two, by their nature, these corporations are resistant to public policy imperatives, particularly moves to protect people and the planet in their operations. And that is why we need an alternative path. We need to develop our energy sector in the future in a way which is under the control of the people of Scotland and is directly charged with benefiting all of the people who live in this country. Now, to do that properly, to do that to its fullest extent, we require the powers of an independent country. So like any other country, we can properly use our economic power to control this sector. But there is much that we can do as we fight to become independent with existing powers. The Scottish Government has recently published its Green Industrial Strategy, and that strategy recognises the role and the essence of having an active state in this process of development. This resolution today is about highlighting some of that activity that we can take. It suggests that we can and we should take equity stakes in renewable projects and companies through the Scottish National Investment Bank in return for commitments on social and economic objectives. It suggests that we should impose strict term limits on licensing so that future rounds can be used to ratchet up the degree of public equity and public control and accountability as those licenses go forward. And most of all, we should use this influence to build the supply chain benefits in this country. For decades, we will need to manufacture, build, install and maintain huge machines around our coast. We cannot go on for many more decades without the capacity to do that here in Scotland. Now, the 1998 Scotland Act perversely prohibits the Scottish Government from owning an electricity company. It doesn't do it with Wales, but it does it here. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't seek to have a national energy company. It means we need to be smart and go round the regulations about how we do it. And this resolution suggests we explore mutual options. We look at municipal options. We look at setting up national heating companies rather than national electricity companies. If we do these things, we can build already on existing things that are happening in communities and in local authorities around this country and create a network of not-for-profit supply generation. Conference, this is a compelling argument. It is about using the natural resources of our country to power our future. It must be at the centre of our campaign for the next election, and it must be at the centre of our campaign for independence. Please support the resolution.
Thank you very much, Tommy. And can I now invite Peter Henderson from Girvan, who's not a first-time speaker. Sorry, I'm now seeing things. Who is going to second the resolution in front of us. Warm welcome to you, Peter, and up to 3 minutes.
Convener, Conference, thank you very much. As I say, my name is Peter Henderson. I'm from Girvan and South Carrick branch, but I'm also on the Trade Union Executive and help formulate this motion. I would give you a little bit of history just so you know that what I'm talking about. For my sins, I used to be Director General for Customs and Excise, so I have worked with developing policies in various jurisdictions all over the world. This motion sets out in clear terms, and I ask you very seriously to read it. Take it all in. It's not a glib motion. We as a party must take the opportunity to gain equity stakes in renewable energy projects. To do less would mean we'll fail as a country. The other thing is utilising the established now Scottish National Investment Bank to invest and make sure that when a renewable company is set up, the trade unions are immediately recognised. They are giving standards for fair work, that they do get all the benefits that industry needs. I believe the party centrally has skirted with investment from overseas, and they've used one or two major companies to look into that. Well, I can tell you from my previous job, I've prosecuted those major companies, and I would do so again. They are not here to lead you, they're not here to guide you, they're to make profit for the private companies. The second part of the motion states that appropriate ownership, time limits and active breaks clauses should be included. And appropriate leases would be in place, as well as the final planning leases. This is important. When you toy with a large overseas investor, they will try and get what they need. They won't pay attention to Scotland. They won't pay attention to the workers. They will just get what they want. Focusing investment on domestic industries and developing local supply chains, such as transport, energy, construction, manufacturing and housing, using offshore wind for supplies, is vital that we do this. That is the way we will progress as a country. To do less, we will go backwards. Investing in training and support schemes for oil and gas workers as they currently exist, because that's where our workforce exists. That's who can transform Scotland. Without them, we won't get anywhere. I notice my time is up. I'll just finally add, please, Scotland invented the modern world. Don't tell us we can't do it again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. And there are no requests to speak again this resolution, and therefore can I put it to conference that this is passed by acclaim, please. Okay, we are moving swiftly on to Resolution 23, which is on nuclear energy, and I would like to invite Bill Kidd, MSP, to move the resolution, and the resolution will be seconded by George Adam, MSP. So welcome to the stage, Bill.
Thank you very much.
5 minutes.
Just to emphasise that I am a first-time speaker, so thank you. I just said that so I'd get a round of applause at some point during the day, but there you go. Anyway, look, good morning, conference, and, well, let's face it, independence. And do we get to decide on whether we're landed with nuclear weapons and stations here in our Scotland and our future, with toxic waste as its legacy? Do we get to decide that? It's not on, and we have to stop it taking place, whether under Starmer or some other toxic bam pot at Westminster. Conference Scotland has a quarter of Europe's renewable energy potential. We don't need, we don't want, and we won't allow nuclear energy plants to be built here to poison our future for generations to come. And I'll tell you, our SNP government is committed to capitalising on Scotland's renewable resources. I never thought I'd say SNP government and capitalising in the same sentence, but I've just done it there just now. But we are. We are committed to it, and we want to produce high-quality jobs with renewable resources, stimulating economic growth to fight poverty and fund strong public services. That's the future for Scotland, not nuclear power stations. It's not nuclear power Scotland needs, it's the full powers of independence. And we can take full control of Scotland's resources and use them for the benefit of all of our citizens, lowering bills and improving energy security. That's the way forward. Conference, the Scottish Government takes a stance against new nuclear fission projects in Scotland. Renewables are cheaper and very definitely safer, as well as supporting more employment than nuclear power does at any time. Nuclear power stations in Scotland, nuclear weapons in Scotland, new Labour in Scotland, no to the lot of them. You know, I speak mostly against nuclear weapons. Nuclear power is not something that always crosses my mind, actually, but it really should, because there are no nuclear weapons without nuclear power. And that's something that people need to keep in mind. And let's face it, it's no big surprise that Mr Starmer and Labour want to have nuclear power, because they're heavily in favour of nuclear weapons, in spite of anything that anybody might say. It's a fact. We are in real danger in this world with nuclear power being expanded across countries. We need to make sure that we do something about it. We can't just sit back and allow it to take place. So when Starmer, if he eventually makes up his mind before next year's elections, when we become independent anyway, when Starmer says that he's in favour of new nuclear power stations, £40 billion being spent of public money on these things, then we have to stand up and speak out against him. We have to stand up and speak out against him in the Scottish Parliament. We have to stand up and speak out against him in the Westminster Parliament. We have to stand up and speak out against them across Scotland. There's only one way to go, and that is independence and the right to decide for ourselves. Yes? Yes. So I'm not going to take up an awful lot of your time because I've already said everything that's worth saying. And anyway, I would have much preferred to be able to sit down amongst you and watch myself on the screen. So, all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I'm somewhat speechless. Can I invite George Adam, Paisley's MSP, onto the stage to second the resolution, please?
Thank you, Angela. Of all these years of working together, you're on message with Paisley's MSP. You know, the branding that we've had in Paisley since 2011 is myself as Paisley's MSP. But how would I start in this after listening to my friend and colleague, Bill Kidd, earlier on? Bill has spoken in these issues with nuclear energy being one of them, but also nuclear weapons for a very, very long time. And I know Bill will be won't be standing for election next year, so I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Bill for all the work that he's actually done in this issue. Conference, thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this vital resolution. And can I be absolutely clear right from the very beginning? Labour's nuclear fantasy is not just misguided. It's dangerous, it's extortionate, and it represents a fundamental betrayal of the promises they made to the people of Scotland. We were told that Labour would bring down energy bills. But not just that, we were promised by Anas Sarwar, he told the people of Scotland, read my lips, no austerity under Labour. Well, that aged well. Anas Sarwar's lips said no to austerity, but Labour's Westminster Chancellor couldn't even read them when it came to budget time. Conference, that will be the shortest chapter in the big Labour book of broken promises. But we were promised a new era of affordable clean energy. Yet what do we see? Nearly £40 billion. £40 billion being poured into over-budget nuclear fission projects like Sizewell C, where costs are already doubled since the plans were originally laid. That's money that could transform our renewable energy infrastructure. That's money that could insulate every home in Scotland. Instead, it's been swallowed by nuclear white elephants that won't produce a single watt of power for decades. And let's talk about those decades, Conference, because while Keir Starmer's plans to these nuclear stations within touching distance of communities across the country, he's conveniently silent about what happens to radioactive waste. That waste remains lethally dangerous, not for years, thousands of years. We're talking about a toxic legacy that will outlive every civilisation we currently know. And Labour wants to dump it in the doorsteps across these islands, leaving a legacy of toxic decay for our children and our grandchildren and their grandchildren to deal with. Conference, the evidence is crystal clear. Nuclear power is not the safe option. It's not the cheap option. It's extortionate. It takes decades to build, and the toxic waste presents an unacceptable risk to local communities. This isn't progress. This is a toxic legacy that will be passed down generations. Meanwhile, here in Scotland, we've shown there's a better way. Our Scottish Government stance against new nuclear fission projects isn't ideological stubbornness, it's evidence-based common sense, because renewables are cheaper, they're safer, they're quicker to deploy, and crucially, they support more employment than nuclear ever would. Conference, Scotland's future lies in harnessing our natural resources to produce clean, green energy to benefit our people and our planet, not in radioactive gambles that mortgage our children's future to pay for Labour's nuclear obsession. Conference, I urge you to support this resolution. Let's stand up for communities, let's stand up for the evidence, and let's stand with Scotland's renewable future, a future that will provide the power and the clean energy we all want and need.
Thank you, George. And can I now invite Alan Brown to the stage, please? Alan is from the Loudon branch, and Alan Brown will speak to the remit back, please. Welcome to Alan.
Morning conference. I hate being that guy that's doing the remit back and looking like somebody being part of the awkward squad, especially when I do agree with the fundamentals of the motion. And I don't want to contradict what my colleagues Bill and George said. My slight beef with the motion as it is, it mentions almost £40 billion being spent in nuclear fission. Well, I would argue that doesn't go close enough to illustrating the scale of the economic madness that is the nuclear power policy in the UK. Hinkley Point C, which is under construction, the latest estimate for that is £46 billion. That was estimated last year. There's no doubt Hinkley Point C will reach £50 billion if it's completed. It was originally estimated to be £18 billion. So where is the media outcry about the madness of the spiralling costs there? Conference, every day my search engine gives me promotes a story about the ferries, because we know, let's not be kidding, the ferries are over budget and late. But why, oh why, is there not, as I say, that outcry about nuclear? Now, Sizewell C is going to cost at least £40 billion in itself, but there's no doubt that the cost for that will increase. And as George rightly said about toxic nuclear waste, now, Westminster try and tell us they actually classify nuclear power as clean and green. I mean, who's kidding who with that? But if we look at the facts, the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority estimates that the nuclear waste reprocessing at Sellafield is going to cost £136 billion over the next 100 years. So that's why I say it's nowhere near 40 billion. The nuclear madness is 50 billion, let's say, for Hinkley Point C. Sizewell C about the same, over £100 billion in nuclear waste reprocessing. And guess what, Conference? If Sizewell C goes ahead, the UK government is going to have to fund another geological deposit to store the nuclear waste, because there isn't enough room at Sellafield to take the new nuclear waste. Finland just built one, that's £2 billion. And the estimated lifetime cost of operating that geological deposit is £100 billion. So basically, Westminster signing us up to yet another £100 billion cost of nuclear waste. So, Conference, you might not know, I served at Westminster as an energy spokesperson. I spoke against the Sizewell C bill. It was a forlorn hope trying to educate Westminster about the madness of nuclear power and how that money should be much better invested elsewhere in renewables and in storage. Conference, it was difficult trying to educate them. I know I don't have to educate you, and it's a pleasure actually to be sitting in a room for once where people mostly agree with what I'm saying. So thank you, Conference. I don't like doing the remit back, but I just wanted to highlight that I think there's so much more to come, and there should be much greater emphasis on the waste of money and the waste that is nuclear.
Thank you, Alan. Before I invite the next speakers, which is Innes Payton and Lynn Jardine, can I check the floor if there is a seconder for the remit back? No, there's not. So sorry about that, Alan. Oh, there is. Sorry, there is. Thank you. Can I now invite Innes Payton to the stage, please? Innes is going to speak against Resolution 23, and Innes is from West Hill, Kintore and Blackburn, branch or CA, and Innes is a first-time speaker.
Hello delegates, hello conference. It's a pleasure to be in front of you for the first time today. It's been a pleasure to meet a lot of you for the first time this weekend as well. Now, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit more nervous being up here now after Deputy First Minister Kate Forbes directly opposed what I'm away to say, but I digress. I'm going to go over some of the misconceptions around nuclear energy and why I believe it should be a crucial part of Scotland's just energy transition. Nuclear energy is unjustly and disproportionately scaremongered by those who oppose it. Incidences like Chernobyl and Fukushima are made to be symptoms of nuclear energy, whereas that is just not true. If looking at deaths per terawatt per hour, Only rooftop solar panels cause less than nuclear energy. This is less than wind, less than hydropower, and far less than any other fossil fuel. Nuclear energy is also one of the most regulated industries of energy. This means that communities that live near the plant, the people that work in the plants, and their families are not going to be in harm's way. In fact, if you live in a community within a mile's radius of a nuclear plant, the banana you have with your breakfast will give you more radiation than the nuclear plant will. Nuclear energy is also one of the cleanest sources of energy. It produces almost net zero carbon emissions, or any other greenhouse gases for that matter. When compared to other renewable sources, it produces the least amount of greenhouse gases per gigawatt hour of electricity. This is less than solar, less than wind, and less than hydropower. Then what about the nuclear waste, I hear you say? Well, 90% of nuclear waste is renewable. The other 10%, it's stored in containers deep underground. These containers are basically indestructible and don't leak any nuclear radiation. Of all nuclear radiation and waste that is ever produced, could fit into a football pitch. Compared to the energy that nuclear produces, this is minuscule. Uranium, the element used for nuclear fission, is one of the most energy-dense materials known to man, millions of times the density of any other fossil fuel. Delegates, I believe nuclear should be an integral part of Scotland's just energy transition. I'm not trying to make the point that we get rid of renewables and we solely focus on nuclear, but it could be a very integral part of the transition. This resolution will put forth and limit the capabilities of Scotland. It will limit employment and will restrict the potential of an independent Scotland. Scotland must not be left behind here. We cannot be scared of nuclear power with the potential it has. Delegates, I urge you to reject this resolution, to not allow Scotland to be left behind, and to acknowledge the gain of nuclear energy, and to support nuclear fission projects in Scotland. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Innes. I think it was very brave of a first-time speaker at our conference. And it's all voices for Scotland. So we appreciate you coming today, Innes, and giving your own perspective on this. It is, of course, appreciated and in the finest traditions of our party's democracy. Now, over to Lynn Jardine.
Thank you, Convener. Thank you, Conference. So I'm speaking to you as the only councillor here today who actually represents a community that hosts an operational nuclear power station at Torness in East Lothian. For more than 35 years, Torness has been a part of our local landscape and its economy. Generations have worked there with pride, professionalism, and the wages from that site have sustained families and small businesses across Dunbar and the wider area. So when we debate the future of nuclear power, we must acknowledge that for some communities, these aren't abstract choices, they're absolutely about their livelihood. Now, it might sound as if I'm about to talk against, but I'm absolutely not. Decommissioning at Torness is already planned. The workforce already faces some uncertainty, and we all face the long shadow of radioactive waste that will remain hazardous for thousands of years. That transition must be just, protecting jobs and investing in new opportunities, not leaving a skilled workforce behind. And that's why Labour's rush to pour almost 40 billion into new fission projects like Sizewell C feel absolutely wrong-headed. These plants take decades to build. The costs spiral, as we know. And the promise, power, never seems to arrive when it's needed. We're told the answer lies in so-called small modular reactors. But the evidence so far shows us that they remain unproven, eye-wateringly expensive per megawatt, and still create the nuclear waste. Their supposed advantage of being sited closer to where the energy is used also means that they would bring that risk closer to densely populated areas. It's a seductive sales pitch, but it's not a solution. And as candidate for Edinburgh North Western, I'm pretty sure that the communities around Corstorphine, Murrayfield and Cramond and Queensferry will all think very seriously about the prospect of a small nuclear reactor being placed anywhere near Edinburgh. Scotland's real opportunity lies elsewhere. Renewables are already delivering faster, safer, cheaper, from offshore wind farms in the Forth to community-owned turbines powering local towns and businesses. And every pound spent on nuclear could create more jobs in renewable and grid upgrades, and crucially keep greater benefits in local hands. A fresh start for Scotland enables us the opportunity to deliver on our responsibility to manage the legacy of the past while building a clean energy future worth our people's skills and courage. Scotland's power should come from our wind, our tides and our ingenuity, not from repeating yesterday's mistakes. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. And as you've heard, Lynn's our candidate for Edinburgh North and Western. Can I check whether the mover of the remit back wishes or not to exercise their right to sum up? No. Okay, thank you, Alan. And can I check with Bill Kidd, MSP, whether or not he wishes to exercise his right to sum up? Okay, thank you, Bill. Okay, we're going to move straight to voting. And have your cards ready. So those in favour of the remit back, raise your cards now. Okay, cards down. And those who are against the remit back, cards up. Okay, hands down, please. The remit back is defeated resoundingly. Okay, in terms of the motion, the resolution in front of us, all those in favour of the resolution, raise your cards. Okay, hands down. And all those who are against the resolution, cards up. Okay, thank you. Hands down. The resolution is passed overwhelmingly. Thank you. Now, I would like to hand over to our party president, Maureen Watt, who is going to introduce the President's Prize. Very warm welcome to Maureen this morning.
Thank you very much, Angela. I'm delighted as your party president to be in a position of choosing and presenting the President's Prize for 2025. This must be what the Oscars is like. And this trophy is magnificent. Apparently, it's the last one of a job lot that were bought a few years ago, so it will become unique. But this is not the only prize, delegates, that you yourself can get involved in. Every year at the St Andrew's Dinner, which this year is on the 21st of November in the Marriott Hotel in Glasgow, you have a chance of nominating, for example, the Branch of the Year, Councillor of the Year, the Callum Cashley Staffer of the Year, Parliamentarian of the Year, the John Clark Activist of the Year, Special Recognition Award and Lifetime Achievement Award. So after this conference, I'd like you to go on the website, or you can do it at the Independence magazine stand, not only buy your tickets for the event, but put forward some nominations that we can then look at. Delegates, I make no apology for awarding this year's President's Prize to someone close to home. Why, you might ask? Because for years, for past presidents, I've been asking them to make this award to this person. I've known this worthy winner for many decades. We've canvassed together, leafleted together, fundraised together, and anything else that we all do for the cause of independence for many, many years. He's been a stalwart for so long. But it's not just the canvassing and leafleting that he's still doing in his 80s. It's all the other things that make him such a worthy winner. He is the mainstay of the Wallace 700 Association, which is now an annual event at the wonderful Wallace statue we have in Aberdeen, where he organises pipe bands, singers, poetry readers, and you name it, to make it a really great event. Then there's the Burns Club. I've never known a man attend so many Burns suppers during the season, honestly, all over Scotland. He goes there along with his wife, and they just love going to them. He also helps at the North East Burns competitions, which were used to be held, or I think still are, in my constituency that was in Portlethen. And he's there at the registration desk, welcoming nervous new competitors and their families. And John has organised himself so many Burns suppers for the party in Aberdeen and raising much needed funds. Then there's the Salter Society lunch, which he organises in November. And there we talk about the Scots language, and even throughout the year he organises talks about the Scots language and our Scottish heritage. Friends, I'm so glad I've kept all the emails from him over the years, because I'm sure I'd have forgotten most of these things, and I'm sure there's other things that I have missed out. He is also a regular attender, as most of us are, at branch meetings, regional assemblies, conferences and St Andrew's Days dinners. And he still finds time to walk in our beloved hills and glens and do DIY for the family. And the list of his energy is boundless. So I hope you're getting the measure of the man. I have valued his chats and his observations and emails, often written in the Doric. His generosity of spirit, time, financial contributions and wisdom has been invaluable to many of us in Aberdeen in the North East. So I'm absolutely delighted that as President this year, I can award the prize to John Mackay. John, would you like to come up?
Good morning, conference. I'm a first-time speaker. I didn't recognise the guy that Maureen was talking about. You know, I said to my wife, "Who the hell is that?" You know? I feel a wee bit of a fraud, because I can think of so many other folk, you know, who justify this. You know? Many of them sadly have passed away, you know, like Bert Tennant and Bruce Docherty. But I don't currently have a space on the mantelpiece, which I built, you know. But I will clear a space. And this may well be the last one in this design. If it's the last in the bucket, I'll have it with pride, you know, and show it off to my family and all the visitors come in. So, thank you, Wayne, and thank you very much, conference.
Well, thank you, Maureen, and thank you, John, for your service, but also for your great humility, which is quite clearly a mark of the man and of many of those who have served for generations gone by, who have dedicated their life to Scotland's future for no benefit of their own, and their only focus has been that for the country that they love. Friends, the fraternal link between the Scottish National Party and Plaid Cymru is one with a clear goal to forge fairer and more prosperous nations through independence. And as we all face crucial elections in 2026 to take the SNP to a third decade in government, there is also hope for a nationalist government in Wales for the first time in the history of devolution. That means we must redouble our efforts to work together on this historic journey, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the stage our sister party's Deputy Leader in the Senate, Delith Jewell.
Wel, Alaba, haima fi eresh. Scotland, it's good to be back. Here in Aberdeen, this city of granite and fortress of stone, where dreams of another future are fast being born. I last addressed you here in 2019, a time that feels a world away from now. So much has changed in that short period. It was a time before the damage of Brexit had bitten to the bone, closing down borders and doors of opportunity. A time, too, before the ruinous reigns of Johnson and Truss. The years of torment from Westminster, their indecision and their lack of vision that have held Scotland's future in a stranglehold. And a time before the advent of Starmer. That man, motivated by the desire to be in power, rather than the desire to do good with that power. Starmer, starved of compassion and looking more and more like a man who has lost his moorings. When Labour were meant to be different, that's why their cuts have cut so deeply. The Tories before them were chances, standing for nothing but the markets and themselves. But Labour have been no better. Instead of using their majority to lead, they followed the crooked orthodoxy of what's gone before, outsourcing their policy platform to focus groups and tabloid leaders, redefining themselves as not the party of workers, but of work, and letting the self-imposed Tory fiscal rules act as a straitjacket on any progressive policy. Benefit cuts, keeping the two-child cap, no money for a wealth tax, but weapons always for war. They turn their backs on the defenceless in Gaza, turn a blind eye to the last and the lost. They drape themselves in Union Jack bunting, talking of islands of strangers and bringing in Brit cards of some scurrilous diversion and absurd answer to a question no one reasonable is asking. I don't know about you, Scotland, but I am no Brit. I am Welsh. I am Welsh. Welsh, just like all of you are Scots, and no cheap bit of plastic will ever change that. Time and again, Labour have capitulated instead of holding true. They've abandoned every value they once held dear. It's fast becoming difficult to tell them apart from the Tories who went before. And Scotland, they will have the same reward. We in Wales see all too well how it will come to pass. After 25 years of Labour rule, something seismic is shifting. Opinion polls have Labour languishing in a distant third. The news of hope is Plaid Cymru is leading those polls for the first time in our history. But there is no room for complacency, conference, because reform are biting at our heels. It means there are two possible futures facing us in Wales. One, led by Plaid Cymru, when Wales can at last begin to realise our potential and follow in the footsteps which you, our Celtic cousins, have set out before. The other future is one we must guard against. One beleaguered and inward-looking, saddened by the selfishness and self-inflicted selfishness which the far right promotes with pride. You in Scotland, too, face a crucial test, an election whose result could help define the direction you will take for years to come. These coming months will be decisive, and the battles awaiting us will matter hugely. But Scotland, we are ready for this fight. For many of us, the paths to these elections are ones we've been on our entire lives. All the successes and the setbacks, the heartbreak, the almost wins. All those who've gone before us, they have led us to this place, this time. And so we have come. These are battles we know we can win. My friends, these are battles we know we must win. Because being a member of our movements has never been some passive thing. Believing in that future of freedom has never been something we cling to half-heartedly. No, it is intrinsic to everything we do. As each of us believes and knows in our heart, independence is not simply one potential future, but the only realistic answer for our nations. And each step we take on our journeys brings us closer to it. Be under no illusion, the coming moment is one that will matter, a reckoning that's been a long time coming. It was the late, great Welsh historian Gwyn Alf Williams who said that the time for Wales has always been now, that our history has been of a people making and remaking Wales in generation after generation, usually against the odds, if they want to. It requires an act of choice. That choice is one that awaits us both, Scotland. And we know that there will be obstacles placed in our paths, people in power who will try to weigh us down with doubt, who'll try every trick to hinder and deter us. But there is nothing new in their doubting. It is a tale as old as the hills themselves and as transient as the mists that envelop them. We are meeting, friends, at the darkening time of the year, near the time in Alexander Gray's words where the soil will be ungrateful and the fields red with sorrel, stony and bare. But we know The dark days will not last. A new spring is waiting to be born. And besides, dark times have plagued us before. The bard David Jones pointed out that in the terrible winter of 1282, after the death of Llywelyn, last true Prince of Wales, the poet Bleddyn Fardd, in his eulogy, still had the superb audacity to refer to a totally stricken Wales as Cymru Fawr, Wales the Great. Cymru Fawr, when all was broken and lost. Wales the Great in times of trouble. Cymru Fawr, standing still. And your Hugh MacDiarmid himself asked how some could think Scotland small, our multiform, our infinite Scotland small, only as a patch of hillside may be a cliché corner to a fool who cries, nothing but heather, where in September another sees not only heather, but blaeberries with bright green leaves and leaves already turned scarlet. How rich are the hues of our fields, O mighty Scotland, with their leaves blushing amber and crimson. What fool indeed would look at our landscapes and dismiss them as nothing but heather? Though heather too holds prominence to our party's stories. The year was 1967, and Gwynfor Evans had just become the first Plaid Cymru MP. Your own Winnie Ewing was invited to address the Plaid Conference in Dolgellau, mere weeks before her own win in Hamilton. And Winnie presented Gwynfor with a basket of heather, telling him that before this heather blooms, I will be with you in Parliament. Friends, when I think of all the heather on the hilltops that's flowered and withered these long years as the mountains waited and the valleys pondered and prayed for their time. But our time is fast approaching, the moment we have been waiting for, those tracks that have led us from Winnie and Gwynfor till this hour, our time that has always been now, the chance to turn all those almosts to utmost, the time we know that is ours. Cymru Fawr and mighty Scotland, those futures are waiting for us. Let's quicken our step to meet them, do the work, make this the moment that matters most, the time the new Wales and Scotland begin. Let's build the nations we know we can be, Cymru and Scotland at last that are free. Diolch yn fawr.
Well, thank you very much, Delworth, and please take back to Wales our hopes and our prayers and our aspirations for our Celtic cousins. Now, we are moving to our final session before lunch, so I would like to invite some Cabinet colleagues, Deputy Leader, and also Deirdre Brock, who is our Policy Vice Convener, onto the stage, please. Who's going first? Who's going first?
I am going first.
Yes. Okay. Just go down the line.
Yes, you're going to introduce us.
Okay. Brevity. Right, conference. We've all been looking forward to this session where we're going to receive some input and discussion and around the progress that's been made with the manifesto for 2026 elections. And without much further ado, I'm going to hand over to Deirdre Brock, who will therefore hand over to colleagues.
Great. Fescama Conference. Lovely to be here. I am Policy Development Convener, your Policy Development Convener. I have been for the last year and I will be in the coming year as well. We've done a lot through the Policy Development Committee around policy development, of course, and we have assisted the Conferences Committee in trying to produce the best possible resolutions for Conference and Council that could eventually become part of the manifesto too. Our Head of Policy at HQ, Shannon Donnelly, has been meeting with numerous charities, third sectors and businesses to hear their views on what they'd like to see included in the manifesto. But our First Minister is very keen, he raises this a lot, I can tell you, that members are involved in the manifesto's creation and help to shape the campaign for Scotland's future. So, in order to help facilitate that, we've held 3 policy sessions here at Conference. The last one will be at 12:30 in Conference Suite 3 on Scotland's right to decide. The other 2 were around the 4 pillars of the programme for government, the Scottish Government's programme for government. They've been very, I've been knocked out actually by the tremendous contributions that the members present at those sessions gave us. There's some brilliant ideas in there. I was really proud of everyone actually. Anyway, at the 12:30 stage you will see Angus and I sprinting for the door because we are both going to be there, I think, along with Keith as well. Now, the aim of these sessions was to hear directly from you about what you'd like to see in the upcoming manifesto for the 2026 election. An election I know many of us view as crucial, not simply because its outcome will undoubtedly impact on the future course of the independence cause, but because I think the possibility of a Labour government in Holyrood presents almost an existential threat to the existence of the Parliament itself. I think Labour's Westminster government would like nothing more than to drag our Parliament down to the level of parish council as Tony Blair envisaged, via an obedient Scottish Labour Sawa government. We also have upcoming regional assemblies that will have manifesto sessions alongside campaigning workshops and other things that will be helping towards the election. Those have been held so far very successfully in North East Scotland and in Highlands and Islands, and there's another one coming up in the south of Scotland on November the 15th. For the remaining assemblies, please look out for notifications from your regional PDC members, Policy Development Committee members, and National Executive Regional Reps. But without further ado, we've got a stellar lineup to speak about the campaign and manifesto development. So I'll introduce first our Cabinet Secretary for, it's a long one, Constitution, External Affairs and Culture, Angus Robertson.
Thanks very much, Deirdre. I'm actually sitting here probably more in my capacity as a campaign director for next year's election to kind of sketch out a little bit about how policy developed at our conference and from our spokespeople and from our elected representatives of all levels of government and you as members gets focused into the preparations for the election campaign. And I'm wanting to put a cart before the horse because I think everybody in the hall realises that one of the most important things that we need to do between now and polling day is to speak to the voters. We've been speaking with one another as we do at conference, and we'll do that in council, and we'll do that in a number of other formats. But the good news is we are already out and we're knocking on doors and we're speaking to people. And I think it's really important. I haven't done my sums, but it's only 150 something days until polling day. And what I'm really keen to do is to make sure that the amazing policies that are passed at conference, or that my colleagues in government are enacting, is something that we can communicate as effectively as we can to people in their homes, so that if a household has a particular need, interest, concern or expectation, that might be around cost of living, that might be around the National Health Service, that might be around any number of things, that we are best able to communicate with them directly to give them the reason why they should come out and vote to re-elect the SNP into government. So this is my shameless opportunity to say to all of you, please make sure that you are involved in the local campaigns using what we now have but have never had thus far. Two things. Firstly, not only do we have the Activate app, which we know was absolutely instrumental in us winning in 2007. Let us never forget that we won 2007 by 1 seat, and in 1 seat by less than 50 votes, using a data management system that no other party in the UK had at that time, which was Activate. Now we have an Activate app. Many of you I have seen at the breakout sessions that have been held throughout conference. Thank you so much for attending. If this is all new for you, go to the front desk or speak with colleagues who have been, because being able to use a smartphone to directly speak to people on the doors, and not only finding out how they're likely to vote, what they think of independence, about rejoining the European Union, but also the issues that really matter, so we can match up these particular issues that we know will motivate people to vote. That's the first part of the secret weapon we have for 2026. The second thing is called Snapshot. And Snapshot is our ability to look at a constituency, to look at an electorate and match up using public access information and be able to direct our efforts, but also our understanding of the likely policy priorities that people have. So we can match up what is it that people want to hear with the excellent work that we're doing in government. So my appeal, because I know we have to be brief here, but I just wanted to share that with everybody here at conference. We are already speaking to thousands of people a week, and the information about those people's priorities is going into the Activate system so that we can effectively communicate, we can follow up, we can do direct mail, we can share information about the policies that the SNP will be going to the country in next year. But we're only going to be able to do that if we speak to enough people. So that's my appeal to all of you. No matter where you're members, please be part of the campaign for the elections next year. Every single SNP candidate is already out, is already knocking on doors. There's a myriad of jobs that need to be done, but in particular this appeal of speaking to voters, using the app, so we're able to best record what people's needs, interests, concerns and expectations are, being able to marry that together with the best understanding that we have of the electorate, and we'll be able to distill all of the amazing policies, particularly I'm looking at my colleagues on the stage here who are delivering in government on things that really matter to people, social justice, housing and so on. These are things that we want to communicate effectively, and we'll be able to do it most effectively by knocking on the doors, using the Activate app, using Spotlight. These are things that other political parties don't have. So let's understand that we have an advantage here and let's make the most of it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Andy. Great. Well, I think we'll just move along in order. I'll ask Keith Brown, our Deputy Leader, and of course, who's responsible for manifesto development, to say a few words as well.
Yeah, I will be very brief because the point of this is to hear from you, and it's all very well going out chapping doors, but you have to have a message to sell, and we need to have exciting policies to put before the people of Scotland. As Deirdre says, my role, Deputy Leader, seems to involve everything, I think from locking up HQ at night to anything else, but the one thing that's actually in the Constitution is the manifesto development. Now, I have to say the bulk of that work has been done by Deirdre already in the Policy Development Committee. You've elected some extremely talented people to that committee, been cracking on with the work. And not surprisingly, once again, the other person behind it is another woman, Shannon, who's been mentioned as well. So a lot of work has gone on. It's very important that we hear from you, though, to make sure that the policies that we have are relevant from what you've discussed with people, what you're hearing from people. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Great, thank you. Thanks very much, Keith. Great, and I'll move now to Mara McCallan, our Minister that's CabSec for Housing.
Thank you, Deirdre. So yeah, I think Shirley Ann, a nice contribution to this session is going to be a little different. It's more on some of the substance that we've been developing in government so far, and therefore to give a bit of inspiration to where we might want to take things in the manifesto. I've had the opportunity to do a number of housing-related fringes at conference, and so some of you will have heard me talking about what we've been achieving in housing so far already. But getting this opportunity with the conference floor, I'm just going to reiterate some of that. So I think one of the first things to say is that John Swinney, since becoming First Minister, has really challenged all of us in government to be focused on the priorities of the people of Scotland and to deliver that against 4 key objectives, 2 of which are, firstly, eradicating child poverty, not reducing, not eating into, but eradicating an ambitious prospectus, and secondly, growing the economy. And it's very much my view that housing straddles both of those objectives. And we are investing heavily in it because we know, for example, that the opportunity for a child to grow up in a warm, safe, secure and affordable home will allow them to have a life of both opportunity and dignity. And that is the foundational way in which we work to eradicate child poverty. It's also good for our economy, because if we put it this way, if a child does have that warm, safe and affordable home, not only do they have the foundations with which to avoid the pain, the shame and the difficulties of poverty, but they will also then grow up and have the opportunity to contribute fulsomely to our economy and our society. So we very much take that mantra. And I want to say to every SNP member here today, we should be really proud of what we have achieved in housing in Scotland since we've been in government. Firstly, we turned the tide on some of Thatcher's damage by ending right to buy, allowing thousands of social homes to circulate and be available. We have built 140,000 affordable homes since we came to government, 100,000 of which have been for social rent. And just to give you some perspective on that, that means that per head of population, an affordable home is now 47% more available to our population than in England and 73% more than in Wales. So that helps you see that intervention that we've made and the difference it has. We also fully mitigate the bedroom tax in Scotland, and that's something that Shirley Ann's been leading from her work. But £97 million we'll spend this year, making sure that no one in Scotland has to pay the bedroom tax. I would love to be able to spend that £97 million on something else, but we do that to stand still and to keep Westminster's unfair tax from the door. We've also passed some of the most protective anti-homelessness laws of any country by abolishing priority need and a number of other interventions. But despite all of that, there is now severe strain in our system, and we know why. We have been living through a period of considerable economic volatility emerging from Westminster and Brexit and the horrendous decisions they insist on forcing upon us. And that not only has made it more difficult to build homes, but we know has put enormous pressure on households, which feeds into all of the things that we know cause homelessness, of employment precarity, relationship breakdown, poor physical and mental health, and a whole range of other things. So in the last few months, and actually in the last number of years, we've been developing a number of really key ways to respond to that. And on the 2nd of September, the government published our Housing Emergency Action Plan, and it, among other things, set us on course for a major affordable homes delivery programme over the coming 4 years, with more money than we have ever put to the delivery of affordable homes before. So that's the long-term piece of work that we're invested in. And it did a lot in the short term as well, and I would encourage you to have a look at it. But some of the things I'm particularly proud of is a national fund to leave, supporting survivors of domestic abuse to make the decision to leave an abusive household, and money into an exceptional bit of work called Housing First, which all our councillors will know about, but that's about protecting people who are at risk of cyclical homelessness to get that home and to start rebuilding their lives. But have a look at that plan. The other thing we've done is pass the Housing Scotland Act. It has rent controls in it, laws to protect people from damp and mould, and really groundbreaking prevention powers. So with all that in mind, I would just encourage everybody to think how we now go a bit further, and I would encourage in particular us to think about how better we use Scotland's land to our advantage.
Shirley Ann, our Cabinet Secretary for Social Justice.
Thanks very much, Mary. Can I just spend one more bit of time talking about the app and give a particular shout out to your member engagement convener on the NEC and my fellow City of Dunfermline member Naz Anismir, who was pivotal in driving that forward. So when you're using that app, as I'm sure you will be over the next few months, a big thanks to Naz for driving that forward. Now, I might be a little bit biased because we've had social security devolved within Scotland for around 7 years now, and I have been a very proud minister for that for about 3/4 of his lifetime. And we have done, Mary's right across government, but in this area in particular, I think we've got an exceptionally good track record for what we can tell the public when we are out there. Now, I think this is really important because it demonstrates how self-government works. It demonstrates what your SNP government can do, and it demonstrates that we're on folks' side. So if you look at the Scottish Child Payment, I've done a number of fringe events where organisation after organisation has talked about the pivotal role that that has played. And that was our choice to do that. Now, recently, we've been criticised for the fact that we invest in social security in Scotland, that we actually invest money in those on low incomes, the disabled people, carers, and we are criticised for that. And I think we absolutely have to go out and be really proud of the fact that people can know that we are on their side and we are there for them, and when everybody else is turning their back, including the UK Labour government, that they can depend on us, they can rely on us because we've delivered for them already and will continue to deliver for them in the next election as well. Only last week I took regulations through the Scottish Parliament that looked at providing more money for carers. It's an important example, once again, of the real difference that we make in government, and that's based on the policies that we're all talking about. And through some of the fringes, and particularly the one I did with Deirdre with members, we got a really good lot of information and thoughts and solutions that people were coming up with about the what's next. Because as well as that proud record, it is about what's next. And this is where I think we're not just talking about the record that we already have in government, but that also the fact that we will eradicate child poverty and we will be on people's side is the demonstration of why, while self-government works, you only resolve this with independence. Because the two-child cap, Labour's not going to do anything on that. They might do something, they might do a little bit on something, they might do it for some children, but they might not do it for all children, but we're not very sure. And at some point this year, they might get round to telling us. Well, what we can say to people on the doors is on the 2nd of March, we will scrap the two-child cap and the rate clause in Scotland for good because the SNP delivered where Labour failed. And when we look at what else we are still fighting Westminster on, let's never forget, and I hope you've been to their stall in the exhibition hall, the WASPy women. We've already still got an attack coming up on the pension age in Scotland, and there's a consultation on for the Westminster Government on that as well. So we will be there fighting with the WASPy women to get justice for the WASPy women because UK Labour have failed them too. And Mary's right, you look at the amount of money we spend mitigating against Westminster's wrongs. Now, we've got a solution. We know that other parties will be presenting other alternatives. We've got con men out there pretending there's an easy solution out there or blaming others. Well, we've got a positive solution. We all know that. We debated it on the first day. We know how we're getting there, and you can take that message out there about how we eradicate child poverty, be proud of the record, and we deliver independence and we get on with the job. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to all those speakers. That was a brilliant contribution. I just wanted to close with saying, before we run off to this next meeting, which is in Conference Suite 3, Level 1, 12:30 to 1:30, and that is entitled Towards a Manifesto, Scotland's Right to Decide. I hope to see many of you there. But I did want to say, if you just want to submit any ideas directly to me, contact me at policy.development.convener, not OR, convener, at snp.org, and I'd be very happy to send those on to the appropriate people within HQ and let the party know of the very many good ideas that I know you all give me. All right? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deirdre and team, and see everyone back at 2 p.m. sharp. Thank you.